What's happening, YouTube? I'm Kite, and I'm like that. Oh, if you didn't know before, now you do. So today we got a special edition of these videos. I don't normally do cartoon characters, but I did this time. So today I'm going to be creating a totally original Hatsu or Nin ability for Finn Mertens, aka Finn the Human from Adventure Time. So like I said, I don't really do cartoon characters. So if you want to see more cartoon characters, hit the like button, subscribe, and also if I get over 200 likes, I'll do another cartoon character. But if I don't get over 200 likes, this will probably be the last cartoon character I do. But that's okay because I put a lot of effort into this, and Finn would be a good character to go out on as my last cartoon character. So pretty good. 200 likes, another cartoon character. Not 200. I'm sticking with what I know, and that's a cartoon characters. I mean, that's anime characters. Anime, not cartoon. All right, so when I do these videos, if you're new, I have to establish first which Nin affinity Finn is going to be. So I struggled trying to find which one he would be because I didn't want to just give him one because he's Finn, he's special. Like I said, I put a lot of effort into this. So I created an ability for each category: Enhancer, Emission, Transmuter, Manipulator, Conjurer, and Specialist. I created a category for every single one. I created an ability for every single category. And I was like, all right. So I went on my computer and I did a random dice generator and I let the dice pick it because I couldn't really decide. I'm not usually indecisive, but when it comes to certain characters, you know, sometimes I get a little bit wishy-washy. So yeah, I'm sure you want to see that process. So here's a video of me doing that. Roll the video. Psych, there's no fucking video. Just take my word for it. It's not that serious. The dice, the almighty dice, the breath of the dice decided that Finn would be a transmuter. So Finn's going to be wielding transmutation of his aura, of course. So what's the name of this Hatsu that I created? I decided to name it Narrator's Law. That doesn't really sound really Finn-like, does it? But that's okay. This ability really isn't like Finn, to be honest. It's kind of, well, it is, but it's my interpretation of Finn. And to be quite honest, I'm just not like the rest of y'all. I'm not. So when I get an idea, I run with it. And I ran with this one. So hate it or love it, you know, the world gonna keep going regardless. So the name of the Hatsu is Narrator's Law. And you'll figure out why it's called that in a second. So what does Narrator's Law do? Well, Finn can bestow characteristics or qualities upon himself or objects. So he can grant characteristics or qualities to objects or himself. Pretty broken, kind of weird. How does Nin come into play with that? You might be asking. What's the process of that? Allow me to explain it to you. So Finn reads words from a book and his aura changes to embody and bestow itself upon the intended target. So whatever he reads basically happens almost, but it's not like crazy stuff. Like he has to read descriptive things. So Finn always carries a sword, because I'm saying that because he does in Adventure Time. But with this ability, he still carries a sword. He still does that. He's not that different. He still has a sword and he still has his backpack. And so, yeah, those are going to come into play. All right, so Finn reads words from a book and his aura changes to embody those words and bestow itself upon the intended target. All right, so what are the steps to activate this ability? In Hunter x Hunter, it is the greatest power system. You cannot just have an ability. It has to function. It has to have a process. There has to be, something has to be pushing or pulling, or if you know what I'm saying, there has to be steps to it. So here are the steps to activate Narrator's Law. This is how you grant characteristics to objects or yourself. So Finn must hold a book in his hand and turn to the page that he wants to read from. Next, he must touch the target and say its name. So he wields a sword. So most of his things are going to be, you know, bestowing characteristics upon his weapons or himself because he's fighting. He needs boosts and enhancements. So that's how he uses that. So touch target and say its name. So if the sword is named, he can say its name, or not, he can just call it sword because he's touching it. So that's the part to reinsure itself. He must read the intended words after saying its name and touching it, and then he must tear the page out of the book that he read from. All right, I'm going to say it again. Hold the book in hand, turn to the page that you want to read from and get characteristics from, touch the target, say its name, read the intended words, and tear the page out of the book. You do not have to hold on to the target when you're saying this. So if Finn pulls out, if Finn has his sword sheathed, he pulls out his book, touches his sword on his hip, says sword, he can take his hand off now, and he just reads whatever he wants to read and then tear the page that he read from, and that's how you activate the ability. Now, what are the results? I want you to really visualize what's happening here. So I've described how the process looks. So bear with me here. So once he did all these steps, once he holds the book, touches the target, says its name, reads the intended words, and tears the page out, here's what happens. Close your eyes if you need to visualize this. So the page will cover itself in aura. Then the page will dissolve and the aura will absorb the characteristics that he read. Next, the aura with the new qualities will surround the target, granting it the characteristics that you read from the page, if that makes sense. So if I'm reading this book, right, and I've touched my sword or whatever. I wish I had my sword, but it's too far over there for me to reach. But I have the book, I turn to the page, I touch my sword, I say sword, I read whatever. Let's just say I say a grand blade bathed in flames. And that's just what I said, one sentence. And so I read that, I tear the page out. I can close the book now. I don't have to keep the book open. I tear the page out. The page covers with aura. The page dissolves. That aura moves to my sword. And now my sword is a sword that's on fire, because it's a sword that was set ablaze or draped in a blaze or whatever. So now my sword is on fire and I have a fire sword. And that's very dangerous. So the more words you read, say that was one sentence that I read, so the flames aren't going to be that powerful. But if it was a whole chapter, a whole paragraph describing how a sword was on fire, then that would be a very powerful quality transferred to the sword. So the more words you read, the more powerful it gets. Also, there are a lot of conditions and restrictions for this ability, so I need to describe all of those. This is my favorite part of these videos, getting into how the ability functions, because like I say in Hunter x Hunter, you can't just have an ability. There has to be trade-off. Sometimes there's restrictions. Sometimes there's vows. There's a lot of things that go into it. Also, when you grant these type of abilities to yourself, say instead of granting the blaze or the flame to my sword, Finn decided to grant it to himself and become a fireman of sorts. He would still have to understand the advanced applications of Nen that protect him from that. In Hunter x Hunter, you don't have resistance to fire. You can't just set yourself on fire. Killua can use electricity because he's immune to the effects of it. It still hurts him. He just can deal with it. He can tolerate it. Most humans cannot do that. That's why he developed a great Hatsu for himself. But if you were to set yourself ablaze, being Finn, you don't have fire resistance. So he would have to know Ken or Ko or any of those, most likely Ken, to protect himself from those flames. Ken is just surrounding yourself in aura. It's just a defensive form of like Ren. So he has to protect himself with aura, and essentially it's the aura that's on fire. There's a medium in between his skin and the flame, so that way he doesn't get burned, if that makes sense. So this ability is not omnipotent. You have to prepare yourself with aura to take on the effects of whatever you read. Like I said, so if it could be fire, it could be anything. If you said, I have the strength of 10 men, and you read that, you would have to reinforce your body with aura to handle those qualities and characteristics. Yes, it's aura that's granting it to you, but your Hatsu aura is different than just your regular aura. Like with Genthru's little flower, yes, his aura turned into the little bomb, but he still has to use a different source of aura to protect his hands from blowing up and getting hurt, if that makes sense. And it's the same way with this ability. Yes, the fire has its aura, and it's down to its base, it's aura, but he has to create more aura that's just regular aura to protect himself, a protective layer, if that makes sense. All right, so yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way. This ability is very complex, and it may not seem very Finn-like to you, but it's my version of Finn. I wanted to kind of take him a different route than what he is in his series, kind of opposite. He's like a dumb hero. Like Finn's not a smart guy, but he's very heroic. Now I've changed him into a smart, scholarly hero, if you will, and I like that. So I'm sure some of y'all out there will appreciate it. Maybe not all of y'all, but some of y'all will. Now, let's get to the conditions, because like I said, you can't just have abilities. I'm going to keep saying it. I don't know if you're going to get tired of it, but I have to say it for the new people. Can't just have abilities. You have to have trade-off conditions and things that boost your ability. So here are the conditions. Conditions are different from restrictions. Conditions are things you have to do in order to make the ability work. Restrictions are things you cannot do, if that makes sense. So let's get with the conditions first. Some of the conditions were already explained within the steps of activation. So you must have a book, obviously. The book is not a part of the Hatsu. It's not like Crollo's Skill Hunter, Bandit's Secret. That's why he's able to tear out pages and destroy it. You cannot destroy your own Hatsu. So these books are, I mean, you can, but you don't want to do that. So these books are just regular books that you can take from any library. So that obviously lets you know that book, his bag that he carries with him, his book bag, where I'm from, we call a backpack a book bag. And so I'm taking that term literal and making it a book bag. So Finn's going to have to carry a lot of books around for his ability. And you'll see why. All right, so he must have a book. He has to touch the target. He has to say its name, and he must read out loud, right? He must read out loud. He can't say it in his head. He also has to tear the page out for the aura to transfer. So if he's reading and he reads his passage, and I have a great sword that is draped in flames, and someone attacks him before he rips out the page, he can't activate his ability. But in Hunter x Hunter, that's not really how people fight. People don't just dive into fights. This isn't Dragon Ball. You never know what your opponent's Hatsu is going to be. You may die the second you get close to them. You may be already in the process of defeat. You just don't know. So people tend to fight and be hesitant, figure out their opponent's abilities before they fight. So this ability is not going to be stopped that frequent. It just depends on who he's fighting, as always. So yeah, he has to tear the page out. Now let's get into the restrictions. Things you cannot do. Different from must do. Conditions are things you must do or things you must meet criteria, essentially. Restrictions, things you cannot do or your ability will not work. So, or things you can't do in general. So the ability does not work on other beings, living beings. So it doesn't work on other humans, and it does not work on animals. Or if extraterrestrials came from outer space, it wouldn't work on them. It doesn't work on other life forms in that respect. And I don't mean that his effects don't work. I mean that he cannot bestow characteristics or qualities to other living beings, if that makes sense. Now, he must read and complete full sentences. In other words, you cannot read in incomplete sentences. So if he's reading a sentence and he says flame sword, that's not a sentence. I mean, it's not a sentence. So it just won't work for his ability. It has to be a full description. And he's not just reading random things. The passages he reads or the sentences he reads have to be descriptive. They have to be describing an object. If they're not describing an object, it won't work, because for obvious reasons, he has to take those descriptive words and apply them to an object he's touched. If it's just the beautiful flowers in the meadow look like the sunset or whatever, some random poetic thing, he can't use that. So it has to be descriptive, if that makes sense. So, and he has to read and complete full sentences. So you can stop his ability by cutting him off from speaking, but you probably won't figure that out. So the book cannot be damaged or the ability will stop. Like I said, these are regular books. The books are not part of the Hatsu. His book bag is full of books. He has to carry books. And if you destroy one of them, it will stop the ability he's currently using. So whatever book he read the fire sword out, or say he applies strength to himself. He read a chapter where a man had the strength of 10 men. And now he has the strength of 10 men. If they were to cut the book or damage the book in any way, he would lose that boost. But his Hatsu doesn't go away, just he loses the effects, which is very dangerous because they're going to start figuring out his ability and all that stuff. So cannot let the book get damaged. Next is he's only allowed 3 uses per book. So if he takes a book, reads a passage that grants him the strength of 10 men, sets his sword on fire, and then makes him a little bit faster, that's it for that book. The book will dissolve just like the page dissolves, and that's it. And that's why he has to carry a bunch of books in his book bag. So I'm kind of taking I took Finn's look, just his character design, and then I made this ability. I like it. It's kind of a very abstract approach to it, but like I said, I'm just not like the rest of y'all. Like, I come up with crazy shit. So yeah, he only gets 3 uses per book, so he has to carry a lot of books. He also, once he activates his ability, he doesn't have to keep holding the book. He can just put it in his grimoire holder or whatever. I just made that up. But yeah, he doesn't have to keep holding it once he touches the objects and reads from it. So And the last restriction is he cannot break the laws of physics or reality. So he cannot fly. There are nin abilities that grant you the ability of flight, but those are the entire ability that does that. So like Tsubone is the maid from the Zoldyx, the old lady. She can turn into a flying like aircraft of some sort. That's part of her ability. He cannot break the laws of physics or reality. That's a rule that's inscribed into his ability. He cannot do that. So he cannot fly. He can't do ridiculous stuff. But elements are real. So he can get access to the elements. He can make himself strong. He can make himself pretty fast. He can make himself like a fucking ultra instinct, if you will. If he was like this man and dodge everything, like he can read stuff like that. He just can't break the laws of reality. So he can't turn intangible or something like that. He can't become invisible. So you get what I'm saying here. These are possible within the Hunter x Hunter verse, but they're not possible with his ability. It's just a restriction that boosts the power of it. He can't do ridiculous and crazy things, but he can do nice things, enough to win him every single fight if he needs to. So that's the conditions and restrictions. Now, there is a sub-Hatsu, or a alternate Hatsu, I should say. What is that? Some people have access to multiple Hatsu, like Crollo's bungee gum. He also has texture surprise that allows him to create things and create illusions, basically, or give textures to objects that don't have that texture. You know, when he created skin-like texture out of like a piece of paper, he can do stuff like that. Or Crollo has double face, which is a bookmark that allows him to use two abilities at once, or close the book and use one ability. So those are alternate Hatsu. That was not a stolen ability. That was his original Hatsu. So the alternate Hatsu for Finn is called Epilogue. What is Epilogue? Well, allow me to explain it to you. So Finn can bestow one characteristic or quality without reading or opening the book. So basically, he can bypass all the conditions for his original Hatsu, for Narrator's Law. He doesn't have to do all that extra stuff. Now, how does he do this? He must hold the book, say the title, and then say Epilogue. And then he'll be granted from his memory of the book, whatever characteristics he wants. Whether it's on his sword, whether it's to his body, it doesn't matter. So, yeah. But there are conditions for this ability that make it something that he doesn't want to use all the time. It can become detrimental if used too much. Allow me to explain. You get one use because it dissolves the entire book afterwards. So if he holds the book, says the title, says Epilogue, and gets whatever characteristics he wants from it, the whole entire book dissolves. So it wastes the book. You can't fit 40 books in your backpack. He can't just stow 40 books on him in a fight. He can only have a finite amount that fit in a backpack, or however many he wants to put all over himself. I mean, if you want to include Jake and say Jake was like his storage unit, but I'm not going to go that far. So, yeah, one use and the book dissolves completely, just like the page dissolves from the original Hatsu, Narrator's Law. He must have read the book at least 3 times. That is a condition he must have done. So if he hasn't read a book 3 times, he cannot even use this book. And then he must have memorized what he wants to say, obviously, because he doesn't have to say it out loud, but he must remember it precisely down to the word. He can't just say whatever he wants. It has to be something he remembers from the book. That's why he has to have read it multiple times so he can memorize it. If that makes sense. So yeah, only one use. He grabs the book, says the title, says Epilogue. Whatever he remembers from that book, he can take the characteristics and quality and give it to something, whether it be himself, whether it be an object, a sword, a shield, whatever he's carrying on him. So yeah, that's the ability. That's pretty much all of it. I like this, if it makes sense. So I'll go back and read what it does. Narrator's Law, he can bestow characteristics and qualities upon himself or objects by reading descriptive characteristics from books. It cannot break the laws of physics or reality, and there are a lot of steps to complete this, such as touching whatever you want to give characteristics to, saying its name, and then tearing the page out of the book you read from. There are a lot of steps, and it's not an omnipotent ability. It can be stopped, but like I said in Hunter x Hunter, people don't go rushing into fights, so Finn is going to be able to get off his abilities pretty easily. Let me know how strong you think this ability is. Who's like the strongest person he could beat with this ability? I really think depending on what he reads from this book, I mean, it's up to the imagination. Like I said, he can't break reality and stuff like that. But if he's good enough, he can pick and prepare perfectly for every single fight. So Finn is basically like Batman. If he comes into a fight prepared for anything, like if he knows, oh, I got this passage, there's no laws against highlighting the passages you want ahead of time. So if he has it highlighted already, he can just be like, oh, no, no, no. And he can start the fight out by wasting an entire book, using it 3 times, giving himself multiple characteristics or giving his sword multiple characteristics. He can't say, oh, I have a sword that like cuts through everything. But if it's in a book, if he's reading Excalibur or something, and then he reads the book like King Arthur or whatever, and he reads off the characteristics of what Excalibur had, he can have a sword that has all the qualities of Excalibur and whatever those may be, and they may be broken. And so he may be able to just do shit you can't do, and he can win fights. So I think it's a pretty good ability. I like the alternate approach. I was inspired by the Enchiridion. If I didn't say that, I've always hung on. The Enchiridion is something that's always stuck in my mind from the first time I ever watched Hunter x Hunter, Adventure Time. It's always been an interesting aspect of the series to me, and I don't know why. So I wanted to apply the book and the story and the heroic aspect of it, because obviously Finn's going to be reading his heroic actions. Like, you can't just say shit about slime and stuff. You gotta say stuff that'll allow you to fight. So I really like this. Also, this is the end of the video, and remember I said if you want to see more cartoon characters, 200 likes, 200 plus likes, and I'll do another one sometime. But if not, Finn will be my last cartoon character, my first and last. But I enjoyed it. I really like Finn, and I would like to do more, but I can't spend my time doing it if no one wants to see it, if people don't like it. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a give and trade thing. I want to do it, but I just can't if it's not up to par. I can't just destroy my channel for it. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on the ability. I'm open to all criticisms you have. And yeah, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one, guys. Peace. Subscribe. Damn. Just kidding. 大事にしなかった私の頭は無理